What's going on, YouTube? We're back at it for another video. Today we're going to be talking about the best loadout you can use when facing off with the Terminid. Now, one thing to key highlight at the beginning of this video, that this is not the end-all be-all only loadout you should ever use when it comes to facing off with the Terminid. Between every match that you have, this is just going to be one of those best overall well-rounded type of loadouts that gives you a little bit of everything that you could possibly need within each one of these matches and be able to slot into any one of those randoms group compositions that you may be finding yourself in with matchmaking inside of this game. It's going to give you a little bit of that crowd control, a little bit of that single target damage, and a little bit that's going to help you with being able to clear out some of those overwhelming moments. With that being said, let's get straight into the loadout. Starting off with our first stratagem, we're going to be having the Eagle Airstrike, one of the most versatile stratagems within the entire game, giving you a wide area of effect for crowd control, giving you the capability of also dealing some heavy damage towards single targets, including the Charger and the Bile Titan, even in some instances being enough damage to take out a Bile Titan if they've already been damaged by something else. On top of that, giving us the versatility of being able to utilize this for side objectives and closing up some of those bug holes and nests, and it's one of those stratagems you really just can't go wrong slotting into pretty much any type of loadout you may have. Coming up in the number 2 slot, we've got the Eagle 110mm rocket pods, which are going to be fantastic for a single target damage. I personally generally only use this against the Bile Titans, as it has a bit more consistency and a bit more leniency when it comes to being able to just kind of throw this near the target and be able to move in some of those instances where you may have a bug breach and there's a lot of things going on around you, but you need to throw something out pretty quickly to try and deal with that Bile Titan, at the same time as giving you the availability to not have to put too much thought or time into placing where you need to throw this, and being able to get back to focusing on the crowds that are starting to get a little bit overwhelming and being able to push those back alongside taking care of that bigger threat. You really can't go wrong with something like this. Now, there is a bit of inconsistency at times when this Eagle Airstrike comes in. Moving targets, especially if you're utilizing this against something like Chargers, can be a bit frustrating as it can end up missing, but the same can arguably be said about just about any of the other stratagems. There's nothing worse than having that moment where you throw one of these out and then it just doesn't end up hitting anywhere near close to the target because they've moved past the marker. But with something like the rocket pods, we're able to get it in a general vicinity, and 9 times out of 10 it's going to hit the target. Whether or not it fully hits it with all 4 rockets, it's still going to be dealing some devastating damage and helping to take down those Bile Titans as quickly as possible within any type of group. And in some cases it may be a single one and done if it does actually line up and hit directly in the head of some of these Bile Titans. Coming up in our number 3rd slot, we've got the Patriot EXOSUIT, which is going to be fantastic for clearing up some of those crowds or being able to call this in for bug breaches, or in some of those main objective moments where you do end up having bug breaches called as soon as you start that up and you need to be able to protect the teammates while they're working on some type of interface to get things done. This could be a huge help to the team at clearing out some of those crowds that will be coming up out of the ground. Now, one thing to keep in mind is to conserve that ammo. Utilize those rockets for the Bile Titan and the Charger. Make sure that when you are using those rockets, you want to hit the Bile Titan in the face, nowhere else other than the face. You want to make sure you get the most out of each one of those rockets, and when it comes to facing off with the Charger, you want to aim for the leg, hit it one time with that rocket, and then finish it off with the minigun. And on that same note, when it comes to conserving ammo, when it comes to that minigun, make sure that you're utilizing it in the most effective way. Don't just fully hold that trigger down every time you're moving from target to target. Pull off of it before you slowly turn over to that next target, and do keep that in mind that you will need to allow it the time to rotate all the way over as you're looking left and right with this for it to fully line up with the target in front of you. Otherwise, in between those moments when you are turning, you're just going to be wasting rounds out into the thin air, and more than likely that is going to be something that ends up hurting you down the line, as you can very easily waste this stratagem and it can be a huge letdown. And with only 2 uses, wasting any bit of the little that you do get with this stratagem can hurt the capability of your team, but at that same time, if you're able to conservatively use this, it is going to be a huge benefit to the entire team, especially when it comes to corralling some of those overwhelming odds. And be mindful that this is not an invincible unit, and at that same point, shooting anything close to you with those rockets can destroy you as well, so keep that in mind. Keep things at a distance, at a medium distance at the most, and make sure that every shot counts. And coming up at our number 4 slot, we've got the Flamethrower, which is going to be fantastic for not only crowd control, but giving us a really quick capability of taking down some of those Chargers. Now, with the Flamethrower, after this recent patch, it has truly been buffed with its overall damage output to the point where it is almost quite literally melting those chargers, as long as you're aiming for those weak spots on the legs. Now, what you'll want to do is find one of the legs and kind of basically aim for what looks like the kneecap of it, where it bends right there. There is a tiny weak spot on the inside of the back of each one of the legs, so you want to make sure that your flame is directly aimed at these points on the legs, and within a few seconds you'll be able to melt them in just about no time at all. But do keep in mind the friendly fire is still available here, and if you run into your own flames that have been ignited onto the ground, it can be detrimental to you, so keep those stems at the ready. Now let's talk about some of those stratagems that you could trade out for some of these to get a little bit of a different playstyle out of it, or maybe some that would be more beneficial to your playstyle specifically, as obviously not everybody's going to be a huge fan of the flamethrower. Not everyone's going to have that Patriot exosuit, and in certain instances, if there's already a bunch of people with the Eagle Airstrike, there is another option that may be more beneficial for you. Now, say everybody on the team does have an Eagle Airstrike already, it may be a good idea to just trade that Eagle Airstrike out for an Eagle Cluster Bomb. Having something with 5 uses that has massive capability of just being able to throw this directly on top of a bug breach and clear out a ton of that trash that comes out of it is going to be pretty beneficial for every run that you have. Now, if you find the Eagle 110mm rocket pods to be too inconsistent for yourself, obviously the 500 kg is going to be the better option for you, as it's going to have all the damage that you need to take down some of those single targets, and may be a little bit more irritating in certain instances to line this one up properly, especially if some of those Bile Titans start to get a little bit weird with their movement, or decide that they're going to do a 180 or stop just before it actually ends up walking over it. It can be really frustrating in those moments, but when it does land, it will be the thing that does all the damage that you need it to do. Now, if you don't have the Patriot exosuit available, if you're not level 25, or if you haven't been able to unlock this one just yet, the shield generator pack is going to be a huge benefit to you, as it's going to give you the capability of stopping some of those smaller bugs from applying that slow effect to you, and giving you a little bit more survivability when it comes to the overall health that you have available to you. So in general, you will be able to take a few more hits while having this shield than you would have without it, and still be able to maintain that health underneath without having to utilize stems consistently. And if you're not a huge fan of the flamethrower, there are a couple of options that can be slotted in here that can be just as useful, including the expendable anti-tank, the recoilless rifle, both of these having that armor piercing capability, so you will be able to knock off the leg armor of those chargers and be able to take them out fairly quickly with your primary weapon just after. But in that same instance, if you're looking for something for a bit more of a crowd control effect, the autocannon is going to be perfect in that slot, and you will be able to take down some chargers with this by either shooting them in the back weak spot of that leg or within their rear weak spot. If not, possibly combining this with something like the Eagle Airstrike to open up that armor on the side of them, and then start shooting them in that exposed weak spot you've made from utilizing that Eagle Airstrike on top of a charger. And in another situation, if you're not looking to use some type of support weapon and you just want another type of stratagem that can have both the clearing power and single target damage, the orbital laser is going to be an excellent option that you just cannot go wrong with. The only downside is only having 3 uses and a 5-minute cooldown, but overall it can come in handy in a ton of different situations, alongside being capable of just clearing out massive amounts of those bugs. Now, when it comes to your overall primary weapon, you've got a slew of different options that is going to be up to your personal preference. Now, I personally like the SG-8 Punisher, but a lot of people enjoy the SG-8 SS Slugger. Both of them are going to be just as good as the other. The only difference is literally going to be that the Slugger is a single shot that will have the capability of medium armor penetration, whereas with the Punisher you have a bit of a spread shot with a bit more damage if all pellets actually hit, but it will not have the same medium armor penetration. And the biggest benefit to using either one of these weapons is it has a huge stagger power to it that will be able to push back just about every bug and be able to stop those bloaty bugs from puking if you hit them before or while they're puking. The Breaker is also still a viable option. It is fantastic for quickly being able to clear out some of those crowds and still dealing some massive amount of damage really quickly, even though it is reduced by 3 rounds in its overall magazine capacity now. And if you're looking for a full crowd control weapon, the Breaker Incendiary is going to be an excellent option for you, and it does pair well with the Flamethrower. If you're looking for something that's just more of a pyro and explosive type of build, you can't go wrong with this combination. On top of that, the Jar 5 Dominator is going to have that medium armor penetration, will have a little bit more damage when it comes to hitting those weak spots on bloaty bugs, and it's still one of those viable options that gives you a little bit more of that sharpshooting, even though it does have a good bit of hefty recoil to it. And by all means, if you don't fear blowing yourself up, the Plasma 1 Scorcher is still going to be an excellent option as well, dealing more additional damage to those weak spots through its explosive damage and giving you the capability of having a more accurate weapon that has those single shots with hefty damage to it as well. Just be sure not to shoot anything that is directly in front of you, otherwise it will be the end of your own life. But that's going to be it right there, guys. That's going to be the best loadout when it comes to facing off with the Terminid. That is arguably one of the most versatile that you can use right now, that gives you a little bit of everything that you could possibly need between each one of those matches. It's something that could slot in within any random group composition and be able to hold its own and give you the capability that you need in order to take out those targets or overwhelming odds that you may be facing off against. And I'll be doing some more loadout videos like this in the coming future, as well as being able to back them up with some gameplay. We will be doing a gameplay breakdown tomorrow on this build, where I run through solo and just do some commentary on how to utilize this build properly and get the most out of it, and give you all the tips that you need to make it through that hell dive difficulty when it comes to facing off with the Terminid. And if you'd like to see that, or like to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button. And if you'd like to see more of this content live, hit that link down in the description below. Follow me over at Twitch. We'll be streaming daily. And on that note, have a good one.